Hello and a very warm welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave and this is podcast 31. On this episode, I was a guest on the Meta Mysteries podcast hosted by Jonathan and Sean, and we talked about religion, the Nag Hammadi, becoming the Christ, reincarnation, and we also talked about getting in shape because this is very important for increasing your consciousness and spirituality. Because in reality, we are under attack, and one of the reasons why we're not able to ascend and improve our consciousness is because our bodies are physically weak, and because the body is the temple of God and it is what holds your spirit. If your body is not in good physical shape, it means that it will be very difficult for you to be able to improve your consciousness and spirituality. This was one of my favorite conversations of all time, and I really had a lot of fun talking to Sean and Jonathan, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy this podcast because we talked about many different topics and I linked them all together with what is going on present today. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe and to share because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix because there's so many levels and layers to it,
Welcome to Meta Mysteries, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan.
I'm Sean.
And today we have a very special guest, a physical trainer who likes to dabble in the etheric realm. Welcome to the show, Todd Cave.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone listening, and I'm happy to be here because I am a fitness trainer, but I delve quite deep into a lot of topics that make people kind of uncomfortable because truth is stranger than fiction. The stuff that I talk about seems to sound like fiction to some, but I assure you it's come from many, many hours of research.
Okay.
Take us there, dude.
Yes, dude.
Give it to us.
So, yeah, before we get into that, first off, I'm very curious about your accent. Where are you from, Todd?
Well, I was born in Barbados, and I spent half of my life there, or just under. And then the other half I spent in the United Kingdom. And so basically because of that, I have a bit of a mixed Caribbean British accent. And then when I was in England, I used to be a civil engineer. So I used to work with a lot of people from Scotland, Ireland, Newcastle and stuff. So I tend to have picked up a bit of their twang. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest.
I see. Where are you at now?
Well, I live in Mexico now.
In Mexico? Damn, I'm jealous of that. It's probably awesome down there.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. A lot more affordable, to be honest, than most places in the West, to be honest with you.
Right. I would bet. I would imagine. Man, I wish I had a cool accent, dude. You know what I mean? Really, though. Let's get serious for a minute. I really wish I had a cool accent.
I mean, technically,
I feel like you sound smarter.
I mean, you have an accent compared to people that don't have that,
I was just gonna say that when you said something about his accent, I was like, he's listening to us like we got the accent,
Yeah. It's funny.
The thing is that you tend to be a product of your environment. So with me, because I've kind of lived in a few places, and also work with people and being around people from loads of different places. You know, you tend to pick up a lot of their vernacular. You know, so thanks for the compliment, and you sound pretty cool as well. Which part are you down? Are you from?
I'm from Arizona.
Yeah, he lives in Arizona. I live in Texas.
Okay.
I'm
So
not
we're
from
similar
Texas,
things, huh?
though. I'm from Pennsylvania and Louisiana and all over the place, really. But
Okay, cool.
so you brought up a bevy of topics, and every single one of them, I was like, I'm here for it. So actually, it's interesting. You reached out like a year ago, and I replied to your message, and you were like, well, actually, that was from last year. I'm like, what? Damn, I'm very terrible at replying to messages, especially on the Cult of Conspiracy. It's like 50 new messages a day, at least. And so it's pretty wild over there. But I'm happy that I sifted through the weeds and found you there, man, because the topics that you're going to bring up are pretty sweet.
Yeah, man, we can talk about a lot of different things. And one of the things that I like to talk about is basically our ancient hidden history. And the reason why I like to start there is that basically, in order to understand the present, you need to understand the past, because not necessarily the past predicts the future, but you tend to see a lot of patterns, and history tends to rhyme a lot, even if it is not the same. And as ancient scripture said, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So the things that people think that they're inventing and coming up with now and stuff, I assure you that all of these things have existed in the past. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take it right back to the oldest texts that we have on Earth, and those are called the Sumerian tablets. And a lot of people, so the thing is that I like to ask the question of who are we, what are we, and where did we come from? And to answer these questions, we need to go back to the oldest tablets that we have on Earth, which are called the Sumerian tablets, and they're about 5,500 years old, and they were written in the oldest writing system called cuneiform. So they're around from 3,200 to 3,400 BC. Now, these records document a time that goes back up to 450,000 years ago. And it talks about a group of deities called the Anunnaki, who appear to what we call the fallen angels, or the Nephilim in the Bible, or the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. So when you examine these Sumerian tablets, you realize that the stories and tales found in the Bible and other religious texts appear to be mere copies of the original texts that have just a few redactions and a change of names. And basically, when there's a really famous document called it's a tablet. It's called the Sumerian Kings List, and on this King's List it says, after the kingship descended from heaven, which really means sky, the kingship was in Eridu, right? So basically, according to these tablets, these extraterrestrial beings called the Anunnaki, and the word Anunnaki just simply means those from heaven to earth came. So one of the things that we have as English speakers is we have difficulty to conceptualize the difference between the sky and heaven. But in reality, in most languages, it is the same word. So like in Spanish, cielo is sky and cielo is heaven. In Portuguese, céu is sky and heaven. But for us English speakers, because of the language, we think that heaven is this mystical, etherical place where this character called God is sitting on some throne, and he's just ruling over us. But in reality, it's a lot more complex than that. And Eridu is actually in where we call modern day Iraq, right? So we know that this area, this whole entire area called Sumeria, which is what is formed as called part of Sumer, and this is the area that is between the Persian Gulf, and it reached to the north of the neck of Mesopotamia, where it has two rivers called the Euphrates and the Tigris, and these two rivers meander closer to each other. And also, if you look further to the west, you have the River Nile. So this entire area was of real interest to them, because where there's water, you can have a civilization. Without water, you can't have a civilization. There's one of the things that is quite important. Now, on the Sumerian kings list, it has, as I said, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. And in Eridu, Alulim became king, and he ruled for 28,880 years. Now, the 8 immortal kings, as some people call them, they ruled for a total of 241,200 years. And the cycle that the Anunnaki used to track time was a shar, which was equivalent to 3,600 Earth years, because they're from a different planet. And according to them, they're from this planet called Nibiru, which has an elliptical orbit around the sun. So it's also some people call it the destroyer or the disruptor, because of the orbit it can have. When it comes closer to Earth, it can have some catastrophic events that take place on Earth, and as well with other planets. So we had characters like Alulim, 28,800 years, Alangar, 36,000 years. You had Emen Luana, 43,200 years. So as you can see, these characters ruled for an extremely long set of time. So also, according to these Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki are a group of deities of the ancient Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, and the Babylonians. And as I said, they came from a planet called Nibiru. Now, the stories and the tales have, because they're all from these people that I said, they all have these 2 main characters. One is called Enki and one is called Enlil. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those, because these are some very interesting characters that have affected humanity. Now, there are some other deities. So Enlil was Lord of Air and Command. Enki was Lord of Earth. Marduk, his son, he was the chief deity or god of Babylon. And then Gashida, he was the god of vegetation and the underworld. Now, if people want to learn more about these characters, a really good book that you can look for is The Lost Book of Enki by Zachariah Sitchin. And he goes into some great detail and shows a lot of similarities with the stories in the Bible, like the story of Noah, which is really the story of Zayasudra, or in other tablets, he's called Atrahasis, which means saved man. He was actually half Anunnaki, because he was Enki's son. He was his son that came from a earthly mother. This is why you have all these stories in the Book of Enoch and the Bible talk about the fallen angels had children with the daughters of man. And this is the Sumerian tablets document very well those events and the names of the people that were born because of this extraterrestrial mating, you can say.
So is that to say that Noah would have been a Nephilim if he was half Anunnaki?
Well, according to if the description that some people say that Nephilim are half, yes, you would say that he would be a Nephilim. But he was definitely a half, because the character Zayasudra was half Anunnaki, half Earth Mother.
Whoa.
And basically the same story about the flood, the story of the flood comes out of the Sumerian tablets, right? All that's happened is that the Bible is a collection of a lot of other ancient texts, like some from out of the Mahabharata and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Sumerian tablets, the Upanishads. It's a lot. The Tibetan Book of the Dead. There's an amalgamation of so many different scriptures together, and it was put together like that to form a narrative to basically create religion. Which, fun fact for you, the word religion comes from the Latin word religare, which means to hold, to bind, or to thwart forward progress of. Right.
Wow.
So if people,
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm really vibing with what you're saying here because I've really started doing a little bit of research myself, and digging into the Nag Hammadi scrolls or the Nag Hammadi text scrolls, whatever it is. And also, I just recently learned of this other book called The Lost Gospel of Q, which is essentially just a sayings book. They call it a sayings book that is basically all of Jesus's sayings that may have, not been exactly put into the Bible. Some of them are put in the Bible, but the thing is that according to this book and also according to the Nag Hammadi with, the Book of Thomas and all those guys in there, it's that it paints it in such a different picture. It paints Jesus in a much different picture. It paints all these other characters in much different pictures. And it doesn't exactly go with the agenda that the church would probably, want. So you can kind of understand why they would change up a couple of words. I mean, some people have been quoting certain scriptures from the Bible for, decades, centuries, right? But they don't know that it's been altered to really fit a narrative. And not necessarily that there's anything wrong with that. Sure, you can probably still take that narrative and, make it mean something to you or whatnot. But, I'm somebody, I don't want something that's been watered down. Give me what the guy said. That's what I want to know. And that's the most important thing. And honestly, I actually brought this up to my other co-host, Jacob, on Cult of Conspiracy earlier today. And he was arguing with me back and forth with this. I'm like, dude, I'm not even saying that I have an opinion on it. I'm just saying this is what I've read. This is what I've seen. Don't get all butthurt on me. This is just like, you'd think you'd want to look into that if you're a Christian, right? But he's just defending his Christian values, what he likes to say. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but also, dude, it's unfortunate how close-minded a lot of people are to this, and I'm sure you talking about this kind of stuff is probably ruffling a couple of feathers that may lose you some friendships, I would imagine, right?
Oh, mate, like the stuff that I talked about I have lost women, I have lost friends, I have, I've been attacked by fundamentalist Christians because they say that I just talk about devil stuff. But this is why I said in the beginning that I'm going back to the oldest records that we have on the planet, which are the Sumerian tablets. Now, what I would say is that until we find older information, this is the only stuff that we have to go by. But the thing is that when you look at a lot of other, for example, when you look at the Mahabharata, and you look at the stories from the Hindus, they talk about very similar things. They talk about gods coming from the sky, creating humanity, traveling in spaceships, which they called floating cities. And then they talk about how the gods were like of different colors, which were like blue, which would be like Krishna and the Brahmins and all these Shiva, etc. So all of these were Anunnaki gods, right? You have very, very similar tales, right? And this is why, like, while we can't say, okay, 100% that all this information is true, what we can say is that we have eliminated by far that the narrative that we've been told is completely false. It has too many holes in it. And this stuff that I talk about makes a lot more sense. And when you put the pieces together, they fit very well because you have people from Australia, which are the Aborigines. You have the Navajo, the Hopi. You have the Dogon tribe in Mali, Africa. You have the indigenous tribes of Mesoamerica. They all say the exact type of story with some few little changes, but the skeleton, the actual meat and veg of the story is pretty much the same. So
it's got good bones.
These people, pardon?
It's got good bones.
Exactly, it's got great bones, right? And all of these stories can't be all made up if you have people that are separated by large amounts of water, different continents, different languages, different color skin, right? And basically saying the same thing, right? So it begs you ask yourself, well, well, it is a higher degree of truth than certainly what we've been told, right?
There has to be. And the thing is that if there is ever power to be gained, there will always be greed to be gained. And unfortunately, you know, it's like I'm not going to talk shit on the certain religions or churches or anything like that, because to be fair, they probably all do it. Am I right? Like, they probably all are, you know, shitty in their own way as far as manipulating the truth in order to gather around the masses, in order to have some kind of power over them so that they can fall in line. And, you know, we don't want them stepping out of line, so let's make them fear God. You know, I personally, I can't vibe with that. But there was something that you said, interesting, right when you first started talking, you said, that basically all of your friends were basically saying that that's devil work, all the stuff that you're getting into. Through all of your research, have you come across anything that is relatively similar to what would be a devil, a Satan, Lucifer, whatever?
No, that's a very interesting question. And what I would say is that first we need to look at the words. So this is why I broke down the etymology of religion, and I spoke about where it came from. And then I also talked about the meaning of the root word religare. Now, for the same thing, I'm going to use the same thought process I'm going to use to the two words that we consider as the devil. One is Lucifer and one is Satan. Now, with regards to the word Satan, Satan just means adversary. That's all it means, right? And what that means is that at any point in time, any of these Anunnaki gods were actually a Satan. They were our adversaries, right? So what that means is that at one point in time, Enlil, which we'll go back and talk about, or at one point in time, Enki, another time Marduk, they were all Satan, right? Because that's all it means. It just means word adversary. Now, the word Lucifer is really, really interesting because it actually comes from let me go back to the beginning. The original Greek was called phosphorus, and phosphorus was transliterated into Latin and it became Lucifer. Now, the phosphorus meaning actually is the light bearer, which was also known as Venus. We know that because a few thousand years ago, Venus did a flyby. We know that because of the Sumerian tablets. And the Sumerian tablets tell us that Venus did a flyby, and it was also called the Black Sun. It was also a sun at one point, at one particular time. So this is why there's a lot of confusion. And the word Lucifer means the star of the morning, or the morning star, or the light bearer. And that word Lucifer never existed in the ancient Greek. So the language of the original biblical text and the word that was used, I repeat, was phosphorus, which was the planet Venus. And because it was our sun, it moved very close to Earth. So this is why Lucifer actually is Venus, which is the light bearer, which is the star of the morning. So what has happened is that those words have been pulled into religion and dogma and in the doctrine to make us think that there's this evil character in the sky or under the earth, whichever way you want to look at it, with a pitchfork, red, and is burning flames. But all of that is all nonsense, because the word that came to be hell, the original word was Hades, and that word was translated and transliterated into becoming hell, which just meant the underworld. And the way the Egyptians describe it is that when you die, you pass through Hades. So it's like a passing through. And then you're judged, because they used to judge your heart. So they would say that if your heart is lighter than the feather on the scale, so they have a scale and they put a feather and they will put your heart. And if your heart is lighter than the feather, it means you pass and you pass through. But if your heart was heavier, it means then that you have to come back here and read and learn the lessons of life to become a pure being so that you can pass through. So hell was only supposed to be, or Hades, just pass. It was just a passing through to the other side, which would be where you go to like the fifth dimension, because Hades is equivalent to the fourth dimension, right? So there's no real place called hell. There's no place where you actually go and you burn forever. And it's like the Jews in the Talmud, they say that Christ is he's being burned in hot excrement. All of that is all myth and made up to instill fear. And the reason why most religions have fear is because fear is a tool that is used to control humans, which we saw very, very well 3-4 years ago when they got us to inject ourselves with very strange injections that some didn't even have labels in terms of like what's inside of them, that caused a lot of harm. And now people are realizing the consequences of just taking some quotation marks medicine without knowing exactly what is in it and what are the side effects. And the reason why people did that is because of fear.
Okay, Todd, first off, I don't know how the hell you fell into our lap, but I love you already. Secondly, I do believe in divine timing. And so, like I said earlier, you kind of messaged like a year ago, and we kind of just really got around to scheduling it. And very weird timing, considering literally me and Sean just like a day or two ago, we just got that the Billy. Let me try and take the green screen off real quick. We just got the Emerald Tablets book by Billy Carson. And this is a lot of the stuff that what you're kind of going into. I mean, I haven't really gotten into the actual topics enough just yet, but my God, you are awesome. The amount of knowledge that you have, I don't even want to stop you. I feel guilty even talking right now.
Taking up too much airtime, man. You know what I mean? Just let them go.
You're the shit, dude. I love it.
Yeah, dude, I'm sitting here thinking like I don't know what to do with my hands. You know what I mean? Just how does he do it?
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, so let's go all the way back in the beginning. What caused you to really start looking into all this in the first place? I mean, what was your first thing that you looked at and you were like, I need more of this knowledge? Where did that start?
Well, basically, I've been a truth seeker all of my life, but 7 years ago, what happened to me is that I had life-changing surgery on my foot, and that caused a series of dominoes to fall in my life. And basically, I lost almost everything in terms of, well, how should I put it? The hologram that I built of myself, the image, the perception of myself, all of that came tumbling down. Who I thought I was, you know what I mean, having money as well. Then, you know what I mean, a man that had, you know what I mean, let's just say is that I never struggled for girls. And,
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean, I was in great shape, had a really, really good job. I used to travel a lot. I had a really good life. And all of those things were taken away from me. And it was just like one after the next, after the next, after the next. And it was extremely hard for me. And what happened is that one of my really, really good friends, I said in my podcast, and I always give him credit for it, because he's the one that basically started me on this path. And because I was going through such a hard time emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, physically as well, because I was on crutches for 15 months and I put on about 14 kilos. My mate Peter, shout out to you, Peter, he gave me 2 books to read. One was called The Road Less Traveled, and the next one was called The 5 Love Languages. When I read those books, they completely changed my perception of like why things are happening in my life, who I am and what I am. And then it caused me to start to read like these ancient texts, because what happened is that at the time, that was when YouTube was actually pretty good in audio, and you know, I used to get recommendations from me listening to those audiobooks on YouTube. It started to recommend other books, right? So I started on books like the Nag Hammadi. And when I started to read the Nag Hammadi, I was like, oh my gosh, like this can't be real. So what happened is that I went in it very, very doubtful and skeptical. And then after that, I read the Book of Enoch. And then I started reading more and more and more. Then I read the Lost Book of Enki. And I was like, shh, like this is levels. So I started to just go down the path of looking into all the three Abrahamic religions. So I extensively researched Islam, looked at Judaism as well, looked at Christianity, and I was like, all of these have one common thing. They're all instilling fear into the consciousness of humans. And I was like, but fear is very powerful in the sense that, okay, fear causes a release of cortisol in the body, which gives you the fight or flight syndrome. So if you're being attacked by an animal, you would have loads of cortisol releasing your body, and that would be to give you a little bit more strength. So, or you can run faster whatever, right? So it has good properties in the right situation. But if you are constantly under fear, in fear, it means then that your body functions start to shut down. You can't think logically, you think only emotionally, and you can be easily manipulated because of how you feel, right?
Exactly.
And then I started to realize that the common theme in all of these religions was fear. All fear. Don't do this, you're going to go to heaven, you're going to die. All three Abrahamic religions talk about that. But this is one of the things that a lot of people fail to see. All those religions and most religions on earth say, okay, if you do this, you're going to live forever. If you follow my words and do exactly all the rituals. And if you do this, you will die forever. But there's one word common in following and not following, and that is forever. It really means that you can't die, because you either live forever or you die forever, which means you're an immortal being. This is the trick that a lot of people don't see. We can't die. We are immortal. We just come back again in another avatar body, like Thoth says in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and you just keep repeating and repeating until you learn the lessons of life. And then when you learn the lessons of life, you pass through the underworld, the Hades, and you come through on the next side, which is the fifth dimension, and then you start your ascension process, right?
Thoth is our boy. I just want to throw that out there. Like, I mean, I could read all that stuff all day long. Here's the issue, though. The issue that a lot of people have when, looking at the Emerald Tablet, there's the Emerald Tablet, and then there's the Emerald Tablets. There's the supposed Emerald Tablet that Thoth himself, inscribed on a plate. And then there's the Emerald Tablets, which was a book that was created back in 1920 something by this guy named Maurice Doreal or something like that. And the problem with that is that some people question his validity. And that's where it gets people to questioning Billy Carson's validity and everybody else's validity, like Thoth, and then there's Hermes, and then he was all of them, and he's reincarnated, and it tends to lose a lot of people because it does seem like too awesome to be real, right? How do you go about kind of discerning, what's true, what's not? I mean, is there something that, whenever you read something, do you go somewhere else and see if another religion has talked about it or another scroll has talked about it? How do you go about doing that?
Okay, so basically, what I do is that I use a system of confirmations. So what that means is that if I have confirmations from different books, different religions, different people confirming the same thing, then what it is for me now is that, okay, how should I put it? I use this system of like how cryptocurrency works. If I were to transact and send any crypto from me to you, the blockchain uses a system called confirmations. And what that means is that the miners that mine the crypto and protect the network confirm the transaction. So this is why you would have many transactions many confirmations confirm the transaction. So then okay, the value was exchanged. I use a similar thought process where when I get confirmations from multiple sources, I tend to run with that and say that until I have other evidence to show me this is most likely the truth. And I will speak about it with confidence because I've had several confirmations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delve a little bit into the Emerald Tablets and talk about some of the stuff that you spoke about.
Yes, let's go.
No. So Thoth, but we need to go back a little bit. So in the Sumerian tablets, Thoth, his name was actually Ningashida, right? That's the character I spoke about before. He was the for vegetation and of the underworld. And basically, he was Enki's son, right? So the reason why I'm going to go back a little bit is that I can't, if I just come forward, it's going to lose a lot of people that don't really know this information. So as I said, the Anunnaki came here.
Before you get to that, I'm sorry. Whenever you say the underworld, what does that mean to you? Is that, I mean, you say hell, definitely not real, Hades, all that, like underworld. What do you mean by that? Like whenever you say underworld, what do you picture in your head?
Well, for me, I think it is in the etheric realm. So I don't think that is actually like a physical place where you can touch, taste, and see. I think it is, according to where the tablets describe it, it may be under in the sense of like, because the way the universe works is in dimensions or densities. So we're in the third density. So the fourth dimension or density, which is one number higher than 3, may actually not even be under like how people think. But they call it the underworld because it's under 5. Because 5 is where you become an immersed spiritual being, right? So what it is now is that you go through the fourth density, and that is where it is like you have your life review. This is what I was talking about, where they put your heart and the feather on scales and the weight. So and the thing is, the way Christ describes it is that you actually judge yourself, because Christ said that I have not come to judge. I have reserved judgment for the Son. But this is where a lot of Christians lose their mind, where they don't realize that we all are the Son, right? This is why Christ said, I am the Son, and Thoth said, I am the Son of Man. So Christ and Thoth said the exact same statement. And the reason is that Thoth was a king in Egypt, or at the time it was the land of Cam, for 16,000 years. This is what the Egyptians say in their text, right? That Thoth, or Ningashida for the Sumerians, he was the god that the king that ruled. He was the priest king that ruled for 16,000 years. Now, what happened is that Thoth is the one that set up all the mystery schools. And he is also known as Hermes for the Greeks, and he was known as the god of wisdom for both the Greeks and the Egyptians. And he seemed to have been the keeper of all this great knowledge, right? And what happened is that he's the one that built the pyramids. So I'm going to get to where that is confirmed as well. So he and his brother Marduk, they went to war. Thoth was expelled from Egypt, or he left. Some say that he left, some say he was expelled, but basically he ended up leaving. And what he did is that he took his black African high priest with him, and came to Mesoamerica, called the Olmecs. So this is why the Olmecs are very much misunderstood and they're very mysterious, because Thoth came from Egypt to Mesoamerica with black African high priests and taught the people of Mesoamerica all the stuff that they knew, like the Mayas, the Aztecs, the Incas, etc., etc. Now, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth were discovered in a place called Teotihuacan in Mexico. This is the place where the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon are. And those pyramids are at the exact alignment as the pyramids in Giza, and they're aligned to Orion, right? Now, in those Emerald Tablets, Thoth says, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, great builder of the Great Pyramid in the land of Cam. He said, he didn't say we, he said, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, the great builder of the pyramids in the land of Cam. So here it is. We have these tablets that were alchemically produced because the material is not found on Earth. It's foreign to Earth, but he did alchemy and he created them, and they're of the color green, which is why they're called the Emerald Tablets. Now, Thoth was known to the people in Mesoamerica by different names. He was known as Kukulkan, he was known as Quetzalcoatl, and he was known to the Incas as Viracocha. And all of them talk about Thoth being white, right? With this white being with long white hair and a white beard. Now, fun fact for you, this is the reason why the people in Mesoamerica were conquered so easily, because they thought that when the conquistadors came and they came on these horses, they're obviously being European, so they're white. They thought that that was the return of Thoth, Kukulkan, Viracocha, etc., etc. This is why they were conquered so easily. This is why they accepted the conquistadors into their homes, because they thought that they were there because of a legend. But the thing is that the conquistadors knew about this tale, and this is the reason why they came here, because they knew to be successful. Because in the Anunnaki, there are two factions, which is why our system of government is set up basically like two factions, blue and red. In England, you have the conservatives, and you have Labour. In America, you have Democrats, you have and you have Republicans. It is the exact same thing. It is a duality, right? And these Anunnaki set up all these systems of government on Earth, and what I call the three main religions that control this planet and what create the false matrix. The first religion of money, which came from Babylon under Marduk. The next religion of government, which also came out of that area. And then the next one is organized religion that also came out of that region, right? The first religion we know came out of Babylon. And this was through Marduk, who was the chief god. He was known as Bel or Baal or Beelzebub or Moloch or many other names. He was the calf as well when Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get the tablets from God. Well, that God was really Enlil, right? But
what?
Yeah, this story goes really deep, right?
Right,
so
Enlil's like he's kind of like a dick, right? Like he's like the one that was against humanity. If I'm not mistaken, he was pissed that Enki was wanting to create somebody or something that could, basically challenge them one day, right?
Yes, and this is where the story in the Nag Hammadi, the Bible, and the Quran talk about the fallen angels were supposed to worship man. And that story is because when they created us, they realized that we had the potential to be better than them, right? So this is why there was a systematic plan and plot to dumb down our consciousness and force us to be slaves, both mentally and physically, so that we wouldn't realize our divinity. This is the real thing, and this goes back from really long ago. So, as I was saying before, that the Anunnaki came here 450,000 years ago, and the reason why they came is they came to mine gold to send back to their home planet Nibiru, which was imploding. So, what happened is that they brought. So, let's look at the Anunnaki as like us, but basically the Anunnaki will be the ruling class. So you have the presidents, the prime ministers, the aristocrats, you have the monarchies, all of these types of people that control the planet, the central bankers. These are like the Anunnaki. And then the Igigi, or the people, the workforce that they brought from their planet here on Earth to work the land and to mine gold, will be us, the blue collar workers, the plumbers, the electricians, the bus drivers, the engineers, etc., right? So what happened is that when the Igigi came here, they were mining gold for about one shar, which was 3,600 years. And the work was extremely hard and backbreaking. And they revolted. And they were going to go to war with the Anunnaki, right? And what happened is that this is told to us in the Enuma Elish, which is another tablet that is written in cuneiform, and they rebelled. So what happened is that Enki came up with an idea, and he said, oh, "Okay, well, there is a primitive species on Earth, which would be like our cousins, which was a hominid. So it walked on its hind legs and probably was quite hairy." And he said, let us create a primitive worker to do all the money and the gold for us. And sorry, it was in the Atrahasis, not the Enuma Elish. But the Enuma Elish has some of the story as well. So what happened is that Enki was a master geneticist and scientist. And what he did is that he created Homo sapiens using the existing species that was here. And the Sumerian tablets say that they mixed their essence, which basically means genetic modification, with the species that was here. And they created Homo sapiens sapien, right?
So that's where you get the jump in consciousness.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So what happened is that when they did several thousands of experiments to get this to work, and then once they got it to work, they used Inanna, also known as Isis, and they did in vitro with her. So this is where the story of the virgin birth of Yeshua, or people call Jesus, and also when you read other books, you realize that Yeshua's mother and grandmother were also virgin births, right?
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were zygotes. So they used in vitro. So this is how they could get pregnant, but not having sex. Because when you do in vitro treatment, you actually get an egg put inside of you. We know this because in the Sumerian tablets, Anana, she took the baby to term for 10 months. So it was an egg from the hominid species, which was mixed with the DNA of one of the Anunnaki, and it was inserted into Isis. And this is why there's a tablet that Anana is standing with a baby in her hand, with her hands in the air, and says, "My hands have made it." Right. So that is what is where the Genesis comes from, which is Isis. Genesis, right, is the generation of Isis, or some people say the genes of Isis, because Isis was Inanna. Right?
That makes so much more sense now. Like, I never bought the whole story about how she got knocked up by God. That never really made sense to me. How she could just randomly wake up one day pregnant. You know, I always made the joke, like, dude, Joseph must have really fucking liked her, dude. Like, to believe that bullshit ass story, you know, like, there's no way. Like, my wife gets pregnant one of these days and, like, I didn't hit it. I'd be like, and she comes to me with this bullshit story, like, Jesus did it or God did it. I'd be like, get the fuck out of my house. Get out of here. I'm not buying that, right? So it's like, whenever you're talking about this in vitro, by, you know, the Anunnaki or any other kind of beings, that makes so much more sense. It's a lot more clear that way to me anyway.
Yes, and we know this because the Hebrew texts tell us as well that Mary was a virgin birth, and also Mary's mother, so Yeshua's grandmother, right? So this is what I'm saying, is that this is how you were able to have a virgin birth, because there was no sex, there was no penetration, but there was in vitro fertilization, right? So
this was Enki doing this. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was Enki and his son Ninhursag, aka Thoth, that they did all, and also Ninhursag. She was the chief medical officer. So it was those three that did thousands of experiments through clonation, creating chimeras, animal plant hybrids, and all of them, but none of them were stable until they mix their DNA with the hominid species. They use clay jars, right? This is really the story of God, quotation marks, took clay and made humans. Well, when you go back to the original text, they actually had clay jars, so they mixed with clay to create a stable being, right? So what happened is that after they created this being, they realized that this being could actually supersede them in consciousness, and there would be no need for them anymore, and they would start having slaves, right? Now, the thing about it is that there is the story of the Elohim. So the story of the Elohim actually says, let us make man in our own image.
Plural.
Now, correct. El in Hebrew means God, small g, and I-M is plural, like how we have books, S means plural. Well, we know Elohim means plural, which is why you have a term called Ashkenazim, which is the Ashkenazi Jews. But if you have plural, there'll be the Ashkenazim. I-M is plural.
You know, and you'll get a lot of blowback by a lot of Christians that, you know, whenever you say Elohim is plural, because, you know, the rhetoric, at least what I've heard, is that essentially, you know, Elohim could be singular or plural according to the language that it was spoken in, right? And so I've always heard it like, you know, I bring up my buddy Jacob again. You know, he's a hardcore Christian. He understands a lot of the stuff within the Bible, give him that. But he basically says that Elohim is a lot like deer. It's like singular and plural, same thing. So you're saying that it's not like that?
No, that is not true, because there is a guy that I would get people to look for. If you remind me after the show, I can send you a link. But this guy is called Mauro. He's Italian. He was one of the translators that worked in the Vatican that translated all of these ancient texts. He said that the word Elohim can be translated as the powerful ones, the mighty ones, or the gods, depending on if it's a loose translation. But 100% it is plural, meaning more than one person. Or it could be translated as the judges, right? So in Hebrew, El means God. I-M, as I said, is plural. So Elohim is the gods. Now, the first Homo sapiens were made in test tubes because they were of Anunnaki DNA, which is why the Sumerian kings and the kings list lived for so long, right? Now, the reason why I'm talking about all these things is that people get a base understanding, because this story is very deep, because I'm going to take it deeper, but without the foundation, it's not going to make any sense to anyone, right?
Right.
So the Sumerian tablets tell us that they created, that we were created in test tubes, like I said, by Enki, Ninhursag, and Ningashita. And basically, they use the existing hominid species. Now, there's a really interesting story in the document or tablet called the Atrahasis. And it tells us that the Anunnaki sacrificed one of their own, Elawela. He was one of the Ajiji. He was a lesser, quotation mark, god, and transferred his spirit through an incantation to the body that they created in the test tube. This is where the story of, quotation marks, God saying that he blew life into the body of Adam, right? So that story comes out of the Nag Hammadi and the Sumerian tablets, right? But the story in the Nag Hammadi is slightly different, where the creator of all things allowed the Anunnaki to do it and told them how to do it. But the Sumerian tablets tell us the meat of it, the bones where they sacrificed one of their own, transferred his consciousness and his spirit, because Thoth even said in the Emerald Tablets that I walk like a man, but not like a man. I walk amongst men, but not like a man, because he could transfer his consciousness from one avatar body to another. And he did that, I think he said, 100 times. And his one avatar body would last for 100 years. And he would have like a cell regeneration place where he would regenerate the avatar body.
So that makes sense as to why he was around for so long then. 100 times
Correct.
100, what is that, like 10,000, right?
Yeah. And he said that the Egyptians said that he ruled for 16,000. So all it is that he transferred his consciousness from one body to the next, to the next, to the next, right? And he could have different clones, different avatars. He could have to be the same as that avatar. It's just like, think about it, like if you have like a flashlight and you have rechargeable batteries and you have like 20 batteries and they all take different times to charge and you're using like 5 in one flashlight, you take out those 5, put another 5 in, have the next 5 charging, and then you just keep cycling. It's exactly the same process, right?
So how was he doing this though? Whenever he's incorporating himself, his consciousness into another body, is he now taking the place of the consciousness that was already in that body, or was he building this body from the jars and from the alchemy and stuff like that, like his own way?
Well, he created the bodies, the avatar bodies, and he just transferred his consciousness from one body to the next.
Gotcha.
And we know that this is quite possible because reincarnation is real. And he actually tells you in the Emerald Tablets that he transfers his consciousness from one body to the next. He actually tells us that, right?
How sick would that be to do, Sean? Like, could you imagine just jumping from body to body like that? I mean, I know that that's what reincarnation's all about, but like to do it consciously, that'd be sick.
Right, dude. I would pick someone like super fucking athletic. You know what I mean? Just do wild shit. Just like run super fast or jump really high. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want Michael B. Jordan's body. That's what I want.
Dude,
that dude.
Yeah, dude.
That dude is chiseled, man. Like, give me that.
Yeah, dude. Go to the park, pick up a pickup game 2-on-2 or something. Just see what happens. You know what I mean?
Just get weird. Anyway, all right. I love everything you're saying, Todd. Please continue.
But if we think about it, they already showed us that is real. Remember the movie Avatar? He transferred his consciousness from when he was in the wheelchair to the actual avatar body, and he left the body that was in the wheelchair, and he was permanently in that avatar body.
Right. And they put his consciousness into a body that they created, right?
Correct.
Right.
So this is what I tell people. They tell us the truth in the movies and the lies in school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Put it in the movies so it seems like fiction.
Correct. This is why the Matrix trilogy was a documentary, not just sci-fi.
I've been trying to tell people this, no one believes me though,
People are coming around though.
Oh yeah.
And then you have the Avatar movie that confirms what Thoth was doing, right? So this is why I tell people that when you look at the movies, especially sci-fi movies, with a different lens, look at the movies through a different lens, you can see exactly that they're basically telling us our hidden history, but they're trying to avoid karma and the karmic repercussions by not telling us. So they tell us in the movies, put a label on it as sci-fi, so your brain automatically drops its intuition to look at it as like, I wonder what they're trying to tell us here, and just look at it, just enjoy, watch a bit of movies with friends, family, whatever, or by yourself, just drinking a beer or whatever, chilling out. And then you don't look at it like, actually, these guys are telling me what's really the deal, right? So
yeah, that's been pretty fun lately, actually, like revisiting certain movies and like looking at it through the lens that I'm looking at the world nowadays and just going like, oh, that's interesting. How they put that in there, like kind of sneaky, like, Yeah,
and
absolutely.
even getting into more of the Avatar, dude, my God, I have never seen a more perfect reality that, like, whenever you see something like that, it makes sense. It makes more sense that in some form or fashion has existed, will exist, does currently exist, whatever, than not, right? Like, yes, maybe they're blue people and nobody's ever seen a blue person, supposedly, but like, living living everybody together. You got the mother tree, and everybody's kind of like just one big community, and then you get invaders from another realm to come in. It's like I could watch both of those movies all day, dude.
But if you think about it, right, the Avatar movie is telling us the story of the Anunnaki. Because think about it, the Anunnaki came to Earth, so they were the invaders. The humans were the invaders on that planet, right? Now, let me tell you and your listeners something. Scripture says, especially the Abrahamic religions, that we are made in the image of God. So let's think about that. Let's play with that for a minute. If we are made in the image of God, then that means we have to look like God. That means God has to look like us. But notice when they say God, I don't mean big G God as in creator of the universe. I mean small g, which are the Anunnaki gods. So think about it. How could the Anunnaki have sex with the creatures that they created, us, right? If they didn't have reproductive genitalia and it didn't look like us? Because think about it, right? You can't have sex with an animal and produce an offspring because they're different species, right?
Right.
So if the fallen angels, the Anunnaki, had sex with the hominid species that they created, us, Homo sapiens sapien, it means then that we have to look like them, which means that we are the aliens, right? Because we are not native to this planet. So think about it. The story of the Anunnaki coming to Earth, the story of the humans going to that planet, we went for resources and to colonize. The Anunnaki came here for resources and ended up colonizing, right? And the same thing that the Anunnaki did to us, the humans tried to do over there. And then it also confirmed the transfer of consciousness, which is the avatar, because it is an avatar body, right? This is just a meat suit, right? So when you look at through it from a different lens, we are the actual aliens, and these Anunnaki gods, as they call themselves, they put on their pants one leg at a time, just like us. They eat beer, they have sex, they sleep, they get upset. We have the same character traits as them. They went to war, we go to war, right? So this is one of the things that a lot of people fail to understand, that everything that we've been taught is a lie. And it was all created to form a narrative to keep us mentally, spiritually, and psychologically enslaved. This is why people, through fear, have been doing a lot of stuff to their bodies and mutilating their bodies in some very strange ways, right? Because of all of the indoctrination that we received, right?
So it makes a lot of sense then that everybody would be the son of God.
Absolutely. Right? People,
if that's what we're made of, like.
Well, think about it, right? I think from memory, the Bible is Psalms 82 verse 1. And Christ, when he was speaking to the Jews, he quoted that. I think from memory, that's the verse. But he says, this is what he said when he was talking to the Jews. Isn't it in your scripture, not his scripture, your scripture, that it says that ye are gods?
Yes.
And that same verse, I think it says, as God was sitting around the round table of the mighty, he said, how long shall ye persecute the weak and oppress the poor? Something like that, right? So other translations call it as God was sitting around the round table of the gods. Some translations say the mighty. But again, remember what I said, the Anunnaki, Elohim translates to the judges, the powerful ones, the mighty, or the gods, right? So this is where people don't understand that we all are gods. We all are co-creators, and we have the same abilities as God, because we are made in the image, and we also have the ability to connect spiritually. And the thing about it is that religion pushes a narrative and has dogma. Now, Christians believe that Jesus was God. They're only half right, because Christ is a consciousness. So first thing first, the word Jesus never existed until very, very recently.
Like the 1700s, the J didn't even come into, it wasn't even a letter.
Correct. And I remember, I think it is 1611, because it took a process to do. Right. So basically, the word Jesus isn't the original name, and the original name was Yehoshua or Yeshua in the original Hebrew text, right? And this name and spelling was translated from language to language and filtered down into the name that we know as Jesus. Furthermore, there was a 4-step process to erase the official or orthodox Hebrew Yeshua or Yehoshua, which took nearly 1600 years to evolve. So the Hebrew, capital Y, capital H, capital W, apostrophe, S-H-U-A, Shua, so Yeshua, was abbreviated by removing the HW in Aramaic. So it was just Y apostrophe Shua, S-H-U-A. So this is why I say that there are different ways to pronounce it, Yehoshua or Yeshua. So then now the second step was in Hebrew / Aramaic was transliterated into Greek to Eseus. And then the Greek was transliterated into Latin, Jesus. And that was the name that was put in the 1611 King James Bible, and it had the Latin spelling. So the Latin was then transliterated into English as Jesus. Now, to clarify, the consonant form of J was not known in the 14th century. Therefore, the letter J and I was pronounced as the Y sound, yeah, as in the word yes. So in Greek, even though it's spelled Eseus, it will be pronounced Jesus. And then the Latin Jesus was pronounced as Jesus or Jesus. So in the 18th century, the letters J and I were split into the consonant and vowel, and J was adopted as the consonant letter. Now, since the new consonant J was closer to the sound of the modern Y, the letter J was chosen to be in the translation to Jesus, right?
Okay.
Therefore, the character that we call Jesus never existed, which is just one of the lies that was injected into religion to take us further away from the truth that Yehoshua was an ascended master who became the Christ in order to teach us how to get back to source. Now, the Christ is a spiritual office. So let me explain that. So there are levels of consciousness. And when you become the Christ, it means that you're able to operate both sides of your brain at the same time, which is both your masculine and your feminine. And then you're also able to have perfect harmony in those. Then you realize your divinity. And then you start speaking through like the I am, right? So one of the things that, as I was saying, that Christians think that Jesus was God, it was kind of like half true, because he never took anything for himself, right? And he always would always speak through the I am, because he always would say through the Father, you know what I mean? Through the I am, through the Father, I can do nothing. So you can call it a consciousness. So therefore, Christ is God individualized in each of us and not a person. The Christ refers to the spiritual aspect of Yehoshua, and all of you and all of the people here on earth have that ability, but we're taught to worship the man Jesus. So fun fact for you, the word Christ comes from the Greek word Christos, because Christ is Latin. And Christos in Sanskrit is called Krishna. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about Krishna consciousness, which is Christ consciousness, because Krishna and Christos are the exact same word, just in a different language, and the same consciousness and have the same characteristics. And this is found in the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes himself as the Godhead Supreme Personality, right?
You are blowing my damn mind right now. I did not know that. I knew about the Christos. I've heard about that, but I did not know that it related to Krishna. And it's all the same thing, dude. And that's the thing. Like I've always had this theory that if you combine all of everybody's spiritual theories and religions and stuff like that, that you're going to end up getting like that bumper sticker, like that coexist bumper sticker. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's kind of right, but maybe if you kind of look at all of it, you might get the full story.
Yes. Absolutely. And this is the thing that a lot of people fail to understand, because religion has dogma, and dogma has a doctrine, and a doctrine creates indoctrination, right? Which is why most people that are super religious or super believe in the system, believe in government, they all basically are like zealots. They're extremists in their way of thinking, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, I do have a question for you though, and I don't know if you've gone over it. But the whole idea of this the Christ consciousness. Now, yeah, we understand where humans come from. We understand that maybe there was some Anunnaki involvement, Nephilim and stuff like that, but where exactly does the Christ consciousness come from? Where does, like, did somebody create that as a possibility that humans would eventually evolve into? I mean, was this part of the Matrix code? Like, where the hell does this Christ consciousness or this, basically ascended type personality even come from in the first place?
Right. Is it like inside of us already, or is it something that we can access somehow? You know?
So basically what it is that when you read the Nag Hammadi text, it talks about how the universe was created, and it talks about how in the beginning there was nothing but form of void, and basically form of void was God. But because in reality form and nothing is nothing, he had to create the universe so the universe could create him, because this is very akin to the chicken and the egg. Right? You can't have the egg without the chicken. You can't have the chicken without the egg. This is why Christ spoke in parables, and he talked about the Alpha and the Omega, which is the beginning and the end, which are really the same thing, because they both come from the same point. You can't have a beginning without an end, right? So what it is now is that after the creator of the universe created the universe so the universe could confirm him, because if there was nothing to confirm him, he would still... Well, you see, we use the word he, but there's no real word to describe the creative universe because it's ineffable,
whatever,
right? You know what I mean? But I want to use a he because that's the only limitation. That's a limitation in the English language, you know?
Yeah, so we're not going to go full on. We're not going to go full on they them, but you know what I mean.
Right. So when the universe confirmed his existence, then the beginning and the end were there. So what happened is that he started to create derivatives of himself in order to understand the universe, in order to be able to get information and to have different experiences. So he created first mystery, second mystery, the triple powers, Barbello, Sabe. One of those was the Christaneme, the cosmic Christ, right? And the cosmic Christ is just another derivative of himself, right? So basically what it is now is when you read the Nag Hammadi text, is like you have this infinite, again, we're limited on words, but you have this infinite creation that created himself from nothing, created a bunch of derivatives of himself so that he could express himself in the universe and to get feedback and to learn. This is why they say God is all-knowing, because it created all of these different levels of himself down to humans, So if all of us have the spark of divinity, which is the Christ in us, it means that it's through us that God learns about the universe, right? So it's something that was created in the beginning, but is still uncreated because it was always there. This is why Christ said that this is the part where Christians like to quote and say that this proves that Jesus or Yeshua was God, because I can't remember the exact passage, but it says that before Adam, I am, right? So they're trying to say that when he said that, he's confirming that he is God. But there's the thing. Christ spoke through the I am. The I am is the God in you. It's the spark of divinity. It is the Christ. It is the illumination of you, right? So it is that connection with God, which is always there, but is a matter of realizing it, right? So to answer your question, it is just another derivative of God, but is like part of like the cycle, the chain that comes right back to source. So it was always there, and it's called the crystalline consciousness, which is crystalline, which is where the Christ comes from. The Christ, the crystal, the crystalline is all the same thing. And as in the Bhagavad Gita says, is the Godhead supreme personality. So it's like, because the way the Trinity is very much misunderstood. You have the creator of all things, which is God, but he has another derivative, which is the feminine aspect, which is the spirit. And then you have the another aspect, which is us, which is the son. So all of us are the son. So it's that circle connection, which is everything. So this is why we are gods with a small g. We are co-creators because we are a derivative of the creative universe, because we are a fractal of God, and that fractal contains the whole, right?
Sean,
and quantum physics very much explains that as well. So it's very deep, where it tends to lose a lot of people because they only think in linear. But we know that through quantum physics that you can have an atom in one part of the earth, and that same atom in another part, and what happens to that atom happens to that other atom as well.
Quantum entanglement.
Quantum entanglement. And this is how we are. There's quantum entanglement with the creator of all things through the spirit, which is feminine, which is the creator, right? Because you have the cosmic father, you have the feminine creator, and then you have the son, which is all of us, which is like which is the Christ, which is the Godhead supreme personality. So we're like the personality of God, which is why we are so important in the whole thing. And through quantum entanglement, there's no separation, right? But it's just that it's layers, and we actually merge together. And this point here is actually confirmed because, like I was saying about the I am, so basically, this means that basically you become the Christ. You don't worship Christ. You become the Christ. And when you do that, all power and authority is granted unto you, right? Through the mighty I am. There's a really good book series by Saint Germain to read. One is called Untold Mysteries. The next one is called The Magic Presence. And the next one is called The Mighty I Am. And The Mighty I Am explains all of this in great detail, right? So,
real quick, man, not to cut you off, man, but this is great. Why didn't I know any of this? Like, I wish I was taught this shit like way back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I was
it's just unbelievable that like we didn't know all this already.
I was gonna tell you, Sean. I mean, if you have any, problems with confidence from here on out, just know that you got all that shit in you. Okay,
that's exactly what I was thinking, dude. When he was talking about all that, I was like, man, I feel better about myself already. You know what I mean?
Right, dude. Yeah, we are the creation, the Son of God. Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Part of the whole, man. You know,
we all are.
You're giving me that feeling as if I just ate like 15 grams of mushrooms right now. Like I shit you not, the way, like, because whenever you're on mushrooms or DMT,
together,
right, it all really, the connections are made and you get all these epiphanies and like magical moments. But like everything that you're saying right now, dude, how are you not like the most famous person in spirituality? I don't get it.
The thing is that what it is that in this world that we have, the things that I talk about, you get a lot of pushback, and there's a lot of shadow banning on social media. So one of the reasons why I do podcasts is that I like to try to increase my reach to teach, inform, and educate people about all the stuff that I've found. Now, I don't claim to know everything, but I've done a lot of research, and I'm able to connect a lot of the dots together, which is something that a lot of people can't do. And this is why you have to read multiple sources to be able to put together the picture, because like I was saying, we are a fractal of God, and that fractal contains the whole. This is why I was explaining about the atoms and quantum entanglement. And through that, it means then that all power, like Christ says, all power has been granted unto the Son. Right? And he says, I didn't come to judge, I've reserved judgment to the Son, which means that we all judge ourselves, which is why when I was talking earlier about going through Hades or the underworld, right? You judge yourself, because your higher self will judge your lower self. And if you haven't passed the test of time, you will come back here and repeat it again. Because think about it. When they say that God knows everything about you, that is actually true, because you are God.
Right.
I am God. Everyone is God. Only you know all of your thoughts, all the things you've said, all the things you've done. There's no one on earth that knows everything about you except you.
And also,
there's no one else on earth that spent more time with you than you. You know what I mean? That's why it makes so much sense that God would be omnipresent, because he's all of us.
And also,
So
I mean,
much sense.
the person that judges you most is always you anyway.
You.
Oh my
Yes.
God, dude. I talk so much shit to myself. It's unbelievable.
So there's, I was mentioning earlier on in the show about that whole lost gospel of Q, and basically, you know, all of the it's like a sayings book of all the Jesus, you know, stuff like that. And the way they interpret it, there was a guy or a couple of gentlemen that went all the way back under, you know, and translated it how it should have been translated, whether it be through Hebrew or Greek or Latin or Aramaic. And so there's an interesting little tidbit that I have here regarding the word sin. That's one word that never really vibe with me. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, we're all born into sin. We're all sinners. I'm like, so my baby who is 19 months old now is a fucking sinner? No, I don't think so.
Right.
So it never really made sense to me. And correct me if I'm wrong. I would love to hear your opinion on it too. But in this book, it says the original Hebrew word translated as to sin in the Bible actually meant to miss the mark, the way an arrow misses its target. So think about it like this. If we are all born into sin, then we were all born like as almost like as if we were the ones that missed the mark, being born in that way, right? So if we're all kind of like sons of God and we're God's beautiful creation, is he basically saying that if we're all sinners that he fucked up by making us? And doesn't that seem a little bit like Enlil would say something like that?
Oh,
This is it. Because Enlil is Yahweh Jehovah. And we know that because he was the god of Eden, Edin, and he was also called the Satan, right? And when you look at his attributes are very much Yahweh, Jehovah, and he was also the Lord of the Air. He traveled in spaceships, and he is basically the god of the Jews. Then you have someone like Marduk. He's the god of the Talmudic Jews. And we know that because we look at the signs and the symbols. Marduk who was the chief god in Babylon, Baal, Beelzebub, he loved child sacrifice. And he's the god that rules this world at the moment, right? This is why there's still a lot of child sex trafficking and child sacrifice on the planet right now, because it's to serve him. This is one of the things that it is extremely deep, these things, right?
Would that explain like pain and suffering in general in that case?
Well, the thing is, pain and suffering seems to have come from the Anunnaki. Now, in the the Book of Enoch, it says that when man was created, the Book of Enoch says that you attribute all sin, basically, as you're saying, missing the target, to Azazel. Azazel is also known as Gadriel. So if you take off the Rael, you have Gad, G-A-D, change that to O, you have God. So he proclaimed himself to be God. Gadriel, Gad, God. So basically, it appears that he is Marduk, right? And what it is now is that in that book, it talks about all of the fallen angels going into every muscle and bone in our bodies and making it weak so that we have pain and suffering. It actually says that in the Book of Enoch. So this is why we end up having so much pain and suffering, because they taught us how to make weapons. Because Azazel, he was the god who taught us weaponry. He taught the women how to face paint, aka makeup. And he taught them all this sex magic and all that kind of stuff. So basically, he was the one that Shinjaza was the one that led the rebellion, but he's the one that basically corrupted man to the level that we're at now. You know?
Wow,
It's freaking mad.
Fallen angels are literally within our bones and our structure.
According to the Book of Enoch.
Dude, Book of Enoch is on some shit. It really is. Like that was really one of the first outsider books of the Bible that I read, and it goes into giants and the Nephilim and stuff like that. And I was like, why is this not in the Bible? This doesn't make sense. You'd think that this would be pretty pertinent information, but it's another one of those things that was left out because it's just clear as day. Well, I mean, if that book was in the Bible, then it kind of goes against a lot of the narrative that everybody else is talking about, and so it veers them off the path. And there's God, this stuff is crazy, dude. All right, so I want to keep on going, dude. And honestly, I don't know how much time you have. How much time do you have tonight?
I'm okay for time.
Okay, cool. I mean, we can go for another half hour or so if you want.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man.
Awesome.
So, as I was saying before, Christ is very much misunderstood, right? And this is why Christ always spoke through the I am. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He also said, I am the resurrection and the life. So by using the power speaking through the mighty I am, he was communicating through his God self, which is something that each and all of us can do if we're committed to mastering our thoughts and feelings, right? This is why I was saying thoughts and feelings, masculine and feminine energy. And once you're able to master those and become totally balanced, that means then you can ascend to be the Christ. This is why Christ always spoke about being as wise as a serpent and as soft as a dove, right? Because the two need each other, because you're very smart and clever to be wise, but you're not using trickery and guile. You're using soft like a dove, which is basically love. You're being compassionate, kind, and empathetic and stuff. So you have that balance. But what we have now is we have some people that are all masculine thinking and then all feminine thinking. So this is why women are very, very emotional, but they lack logic for the most part. And then this is what it meant. We think of all logic through all logic, but we have no sort of like empathy sometimes, because for us, if it doesn't make sense, well, it doesn't do. But for females, it's not necessarily about if it makes sense, it's how it feels. So we both need to learn how to balance that, where we can say, okay, well, in this situation, you would have to use logic. And in this situation, it doesn't feel right. So you don't do that, right? So in order to read the Bible, which, by the way, Bible is all a creation from Baal, Marduk, Beelzebub, etc. It's the same Anunnaki being who is very much at the forefront of the Bible being created.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
my God. How have I not put that together in my wacky brain, dude?
It was
By-
right under your nose the whole time, dude.
Wow.
You know?
And Christians will say that, the Bible is basically an acronym that stands for basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Really?
It's cute. It's cute.
I mean,
I can't imagine that's how it was said in Aramaic, personally, but I'm just kidding. I don't mean to bust anybody's balls. I mean, look, anybody is free to think and go down whatever kind of spiritual path, you want. But yeah, I mean, you can't just look at any kind of side narrative to all this stuff, especially if it's documented far older than when the Bible or any of the books in the Bible were ever even written, and say then, because it disagrees with what you believe the creation or God or Jesus to be, that it is now the devil. That doesn't work that way. I mean, because, that's how they rope a lot of people in, is by saying, well, the devil is the greatest deceiver. The devil knows the Bible better than anybody. And so this is how he would manipulate it, right? I'm sure you've heard that a million times in your life, Todd.
I've heard that a million times, but what people don't understand is that, again, the whole concept of the devil comes from those Lucifer and Satan words. And what it is now is that those have been very much misunderstood. Now, what it is that there is a positive energy, which is the creator of all things, and there's a negative energy. And both need each other to coexist, because you have a negative and a positive. What it is that if you have too much negative, it means then now that there's lack of love. But if there's too much love, there's nothing that bad that happens. That's just the way it works, right? So what it is now is that who we think of the devil is actually us, because both the devil, the negative energy, and the positive energy is inside of us. And the devil, if you want to attribute it to something, is basically your ego. Your ego is what runs the show, because your ego is the one that basically causes you to self-sabotage. Your ego is the one that causes you to be very greedy or selfish. Your ego is the one that causes you to steal and to kill, because the ego is basically your enemigo, which is really your enemy, right?
I like what you did there.
But it's all you, because it is you, because you are God, you are choosing which energy you want to embrace, right? Because the universe and the matrix is created through choice. What it is now is that we've been manipulated to choose the negative, to choose the ego, instead of choosing to become the Christ, choosing to realize our divinity and choose to realize who and what we are. And this ties very perfectly into what I was going to say, because when Christ spoke, he spoke through the I am, right? Because that was the God in him. He was speaking through the I am. If Christians are 100% honest with themselves, Christ never took anything for himself. He always said through the Father, through the power of the Father. It was always through the Father. I can do nothing. If it is not for the Father, I am nothing. He never, ever, ever said, hey, I am God, worship me.
right.
He always was basically, look at Christ as like a big brother who came here to just teach us.
Setting the example.
Said exactly. This is why he says, I am the truth, the way, and the life. What does that mean? Walk this path, which is the way. Speak this truth. Live like this, right? And you will be like me.
Yes.
No one comes to the Father but through the Son. Through the Son is you realize your divinity, because you're all sons of God. And when you realize you're the Christ, this is why he talks about the bride and the bridegroom. You marry the Spirit. The Spirit is the creator. Then you realize, wow, okay, it all opens up. I'm connected back to the whole. I never left. I was always here, right? Because there's no separation. There's no lack. But what it is, through our belief and through our perception, that we create separation. But separation isn't real. It is just an image. It is a hologram that we've created. It is not real. But because we think it's real, it becomes real. Why? Because we have the power of God. We are co-creators. We can create. This is why the word abracadabra is used for magic. It means I create as I speak. Right?
Yep.
So you are doing magic to yourself. We all are doing magic to yourself. Right? So one of the keys to understand Christ is to read the book of John, which has the most of Christ's words than any book. And one chapter in particular is chapter 17, known as the High Priestly Prayer, which is the clearest text that shows that the Son of Man, which is all of us, I repeat, which is all of us, is one with God, just like Yeshua was one with God. So this is going to get very interesting. So I'm going to start at verse 17. It says, sanctify them in truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them, which is us, sent them into the world. And for their sake, I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth. Remember, the truth, the way, the life, right? This is where it gets really interesting. I do not ask these only, but also for those who believe in me through their word, that they may be all one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be in us, right? So that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one as we are one, I in you, you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you've sent me and loved me as you, and loved them even as you loved me. So he said it 3 times, right?
Oh my God.
3 times, right?
Shit.
This is the part that Christians fail to see. Yeshua, Jesus, which is not a real name, Yeshua was trying to show us, look, I am just like you, right? I did not come here to judge. I've reserved the judgment for the Son. The Son is us. All of us is I, you, me, the security guard outside here. It's all us. And he also said, I and you and me, and they and us. He said it 3 times. So this is why I had to go to talk about the quantum entanglement, quantum physics, to show that it is all the same thing. When you look at the Nag Hammadi, we are just derivatives of God, but we contain the whole of God, but we connect all to each other to create God, because God is everything. The trees are God, the plants are God, the animals are God, the fish in the sea are God. Everything is God. All of us are God. And when we realize that we all are God, it means that we will change the way we interact with each other.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, dude, like, I mean, how does that not make you want to just be nicer to everybody?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct. And you know, in the Eastern cultures, when they greet someone, they put their hands together and they bow to that person. Now, in the Eastern traditions, they use the word namaste. Now, what namaste means is I bow to the divine in you. Right?
Oh,
This is what a lot of people don't get.
Wow, I
This is
didn't know
why
that either.
I personally use the word namaste, because I'm giving homage to the divine in you. When
Right.
I like writing a letter, or I'm sending a text, or when I do my walk and talk videos, I would say namaste because I'm giving homage to the divine in you, because we are all God. And if we all realize that, we give reverence to each other, right?
Dude,
Wow.
I love this shit.
You know,
I love
sometimes you hear something and it just it absolutely has to
Resonates.
be true. You know what I mean?
Right.
And what's interesting is that, you know, you watch movies or you see people say namaste, it's usually just like a thing that you say to calm you down. It's like namaste, 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 calm down. You know what I mean? Like that's how it's like kind of portrayed in movies, but wow, me bowing to the what is
showing
it?
Divine.
homage to the divine in you.
you.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that is beautiful.
I bow to the divine in you. Yep. Or I show homage. Same thing, you know?
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, it's a combination of two Sanskrit words.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
basically, that's what it means. I bow to the divine in you. Nam and Aste. So
Holy shit, dude.
this is the thing. A lot of these old texts are having a lot of stuff, man.
Right. Shit, dude.
Dude, I tell you what, this is something that we have been wanting to get to the bottom of. And not just any specific religion, but we're trying to get to the absolute spiritual truth here. And that's why we cover all of the wild things, whether it be aliens or certain psychic abilities or certain types of spirituality, past life regression, near-death experiences, you name it, we've covered so many topics already. But everything that you're talking about right now, the reason why we talk about all this stuff is because we want to get to that absolute truth, that absolute level of understanding, because we know that this is just a temporary existence. We know that this is just a human flesh suit designed to, you know, be traded in one day and not, I mean, we're not going to stay with this body, you know, for forever. Everybody knows that. But, you know, I think, and this is something that I have kind of juggled with really my whole life, more recently over the past 5 or 6 years. But I always thought if I knew the truth, I then would know exactly how to live my life. And if I knew what to do, like if I knew that there was a specifically right way to do something, then I would do it. But the problem is that I've been so confused, and not so much confused anymore, especially, you know, the more stuff, you know, more shows we do, the more we start to understand. But I feel like, you know, if everybody knew exactly what you were supposed to do, I mean, it would just be like so much easier. Not necessarily that there are rules, you know, so to say, but there has to be a right way of living. I mean, how would you put that?
Well, what I would say is that the first thing that we need to realize is that, one, the government is not our friend. The government is not there to help us. And in fact, the government is there to oppress us, because the word government means mind control. It comes from two Latin words. One, governere, which means to steer, to steer or to manage or to control. And the next word comes from mensis, which is also Latin, which means the mind. So it really means mind control. So the first thing for people to realize is that you need to realize that the government is not your friend, and the government is there to enslave you and to push an agenda, because the government was created by these Anunnaki gods. And once you understand that these extraterrestrial beings are only trying to siphon off your energy and to keep harvesting your souls, and as I said, the Matrix movie was a documentary, then you realize, hold on a minute, the world is not what they tell me, it is something else. And the second thing is that all religion, I mean, I get a lot of hate and a lot of pushback from this, but this is the truth. Like I said, look at the etymology of the word. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare, which means to hold or to bind or to thwart forward progress of. And like I said, I have lost women because of this, good women too. But the thing is that I'm a man of principle and I will not bend because I've done a lot more research than they have done. So I rather stick to my truth until I'm proven wrong. But anyway, as I digress, the religion holds you back because it doesn't give you all of the tools for life. Because if you look at people that are very, very religious, they're always held back by something in their life. And they always have this fear. And fear is not good. It's a negative energy. Fear is what causes us to inject ourselves with substances that we know nothing about, and to even cut body parts off of us because we think we are not born the right way, etc. It's crazy stuff. All of this comes from fear. And you need to, people like Christians will say, we're just following Christ. But in truth, they're actually not, because Christ was a bit of a maverick. He was a bit of a rebel to the system, right? Christ is akin to like Neo in the Matrix movie. The one, well, you need to be the Neo of your life. You need to be the one. You need to be the one that feed yourself the best food, exercise, talk to yourself kindly, forgive yourself, hang with people that are like-minded, or even if you're not like them, hang with them because they will inspire you to be better. So as you know, I'm into fitness. So if you want to be fit, hang with fit people, right? You only hang with drunkards and people that use hard drugs if you want to be like that. So birds of a feather flock together. So what you need to do is you need to remove all the negativity out of your life. Practice things like meditation. Because what meditation will do, it will allow you to calm your mind. Because one of the things that is really, really powerful is our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is responsible for 90 to 95% of all of our actions, reactions, beliefs about ourselves, and ways of being, right? So meditation is very good for tapping into the subconscious, because your conscious mind is the one that drives the car and is the one that prepares food and is the one that's playing sports. But your subconscious mind is responsible to your biases, your hatred for this thing or that thing, your disbelief in this thing, how you feel about yourself, if you think you're a failure, etc. This is your subconscious mind. Now, one of the things that I am a big believer in is psychedelics, because psychedelics help give you access to this part of your brain, right? And think about it. Why is psychedelics so heavily taught down in public or by governments and by religious people? Because it allows you to break the system of the mental slavery that they have us in. And what it is now is that, think about it. Psychedelics, we have cannabinoid receptors in our brain. We have DMT receptors in our brain. And we have psilocybin receptors in our brain, right? If those substances were not meant to be used for our betterment, we wouldn't have the receptors in our brain. It would just be simply eating like some broccoli or some lettuce. It would do nothing. And the mere fact that we have those receptors in our brain means that those are tools that the universe has given us to help us here on our journey to get back to source, to realize our divinity, to realize, hold on a minute, I am God. I create as I speak. My thoughts are powerful. My thoughts are things. And this is why I always, I'm a big believer that if all of us on earth have taken psychedelics in our life, the planet would be a completely different place, because you don't take things like ayahuasca and be the exact same person that you are. It is impossible, because you see too much about yourself, and it's basically you facing you in the mirror, right?
Absolutely. And that's something we've talked, me and Sean have actually, done psychedelics together several times, and we come to the same conclusion every time, as far as just, wow, there is so much to learn. Like, the world, this creation is such an incredible place, and we have to keep on studying this. We have to try and get to the bottom of this to really understand it. And I honestly think that, the more you understand, the better life you're going to live, because now it's a full-on level of understanding, just like how you were saying, religion basically operates out of fear. Well, if you're always in fear, you're going to be making fearful decisions, and therefore it's not really decisions that are going to align with your higher self and everything else. So it's like, I almost, you were talking a little bit earlier about, why would the governments prohibit you from taking any psychedelic, right? And I kind of just look at it to make a Matrix reference. I mean, Agent Smith wouldn't give you the red pill, would he?
Absolutely not. He wouldn't.
It's going to keep you, they want you closed off. When we're enjoying a psychedelic trip, like one of the things I feel like happens is that you're just kind of opened up. You know what I'm saying? I think over the years you kind of create this image of yourself and your idea of how things are going and how things should go, and it's kind of I don't know, seemingly stagnant, but when you're on psychedelics, it just seems like this flower that just opens up, and all of a sudden now you're able to see these different ideas from so many different angles, and these thoughts that come in and ideas. It's unbelievable. And I wanted to add to what you said, Jonathan, dude. You were saying about if you knew how to live life, you're going into that as far as like knowing how, like with all this information, knowing how to live life. And the thought that came to my head, like if you knew the absolute truth, you knew the absolute best way to live, I had this thought like, well, then wouldn't you go and try to teach everyone how to do that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting. Man.
Yeah.
Or
Like,
at least help.
like all the-
even if you don't go and teach everyone, like if someone comes to you and asks, or you know what I'm saying, wouldn't you just be more than happy to help?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's how
Well,
I do what I
Jesus
do.
is doing. I'm just saying.
yeah, think about it. The stuff that you're talking about, Todd, the stuff that, a lot of others are trying to blare the horn on, and also, kind of what we talk about. Like, if we were living in the olden days, we would get stoned. Like, people would just start throwing stones at us. People would hang us on a cross. People would say that, we're the fakes or whatever, right? And so this is the stuff that Jesus and probably all the great teachers had to experience. I'm not saying that that's what you are, what we are, or anything like that, but I'm saying, getting this new perspective on trying to understand the way of the world and, understand Jesus a little bit more, and all these other great teachers, the normies don't want to hear it. The normies know the story, and they don't want to go around the story. They just want to, they just want to stay comfortable, and, they want their traditions to remain the same. They want, the stories and the narratives that their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents told them. They want to keep on carrying on those traditions. Well, that's not exactly, going out there and searching for any kind of truth. That's kind of settling in what your family has seemingly just made a tradition of, and a tradition is not going to teach you a whole lot. It might teach you a little bit about the history of your family, might teach you a little bit about the history of how your church did things, but it's not going to teach you what you need, what we all strive for, just that meat. That's the broccoli. You know what I'm saying? Give me the meat.
Absolutely. And fun fact for you, Christ said, greater things shall ye do. And he says, I try to remember exactly what he said, but he says, basically he's paraphrasing, I did nothing and they persecuted me. Imagine what they will do to you, right? And basically what it is that he didn't do anything at all to anybody. He was just a bit of a disruptor, and they persecuted him for it. And imagine people like us, people that you have on your show, people like me, people like you, we're all persecuted for the thoughts and the beliefs and the things that we share. And like you said, it goes against the narrative of the normies. The normies want to feel safe, and it feels comfortable to just accept the stories that they were told, even though deep down it doesn't make sense, but they're too afraid of the unknown. So what they do is like they stick to the known, even though the known doesn't make them happy. It doesn't give them any freedom. It doesn't give them any real satisfaction in life, but they rather they want to keep their comfort, which is why You know what I mean? They told us, oh, if you don't inject yourself, well, you can lose your job, you know? And, you know, it's been coming out now that is all BS, because you have governments like Germany that recently admitted that there was no pandemic. It was a pandemic, you know what I mean? So, yeah, there's an interesting information that came out recently. They basically admitted. So, what my point is
that's
like,
coming from the country that produced Hitler, by the way. They're the ones that are coming out and saying, like, all right, look,
Right.
you know, we already kind of put y'all through some shit back in the day, and we're not going to do that again. So we're just going to call it how we see it. This is the way it is.
So like, why do you got to keep bringing up old shit? You know?
But yeah, man, you know, you need to eat right, get into shape. You know what I mean? Because like, this is why I do what I do. This is why I'm a coach, and I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. And the reason why I have that approach, and I like to work with those kind of people, is that I understand that getting in shape is not just one part of you, because it's about improving your mindset as well. It's about creating different belief system inside of you to realize that you are God. You are able to create the world that you want, the life that you want, right? So I do that through some very bespoke techniques, where I'm a person that the people that I coach, I give them like meditations to do. I help them create habits, and because getting into shape is just dealing with the physical aspect of you, but you need to deal with the mental part, and you need to deal with the spiritual part. And when you feed all three of those parts of you, it means you become the superhuman, you become the God man, you become on your way to ascension. Because what will happen is that as you're eating better and doing exercise, by default, you're going to increase your energy. And then after you start to increase more energy, that means that you'll be more receptive to trying new things, like meditation, reading books.
Oh yeah.
Then you start to bring in more light into you. So what will happen now is that as you start to improve your physical condition, physique, your mindset will change, because you can't get fit unless you have the mindset to get fit. So that mindset is transferable to other areas of your life, whether it's your business, whether it's your job, your relationship with kids, family, friends, whatever, right? So then now, as you start to improve your relationships, then what's going to happen is that when you start reading some of the books that I recommend to you, then you can start to realize, hold on a minute, I am greater than I think I am, and the power of the universe is inside of me. So when you start to realize that now, you start to create your own relationship with the divine. And as you realize that the divine is in you always, you can start to, when you do meditation or sit in a quiet room sometimes and just don't do anything, very, very, very subtly, you can start to hear a very soft voice. It takes a little while. And once you start in tune with it, that is your higher self that you're starting to connect with, right? Because I always say to people that the way I see it is that in order to connect to your higher self, you go through the body. So you have to do the prep work. Because if the body is the temple of God, you need to sanctify and cleanse that temple for God to come and reside in it. So what you do is you get in shape, you eat better, and you do all these things. You raise your energy. When you start spending time for yourself, one of the things that I would say to people is like, get up slightly early in the morning. Even if, suppose you don't want to meditate, sit down just with yourself, 15 minutes, no phone, no nothing, and just sit there. And you can start to see how your mind is going to wander. It's just going to wander, right? And then you can start to become present. Oh, hold on a minute. I didn't realize I had all of these thoughts, right? And then after time, as you start to become conscious of your thoughts, you can be like, okay, well, I need to quiet that. It's too much noise, right? So then this is why meditation will start to come in. And then when you start to hear that soft voice in your head, it's your own voice as well. Boom. That's when you start to get the downloads. You get shown what to do. You start to realize that, hold on a minute, well, God is talking to me because I'm talking to myself, because God is me and I'm not alone. I'm always connected. I am the omnipresent. Through me, he lives in me. Then you start to realize, hold on a minute. So in order for me to keep this going, then you'd have to start to look at how you treat other people, right? And then now you realize, hold on a minute. Well, that person is God as well. So I need to bow to the divine in them. So I need to treat them a certain way. So then now, all of this is coming from exercise, because now it's a systematic approach to how you look at everything, the truth, the way, the life. Because my goal is to help people to realize the divinity so that all of us become the Christ. We all are, but we just have not realized it yet, right? So this is why I coach people, and I have a very unique way of coaching people. So like if anyone is interested in, getting into shape, to burn fat, build muscle, improve their mindset, increase their spirituality as well, and have loads of fun doing it, you can find me on Adriano_246 on Instagram, or my name Todd Cave on Instagram. And I recently started work with a company that produces mushrooms as well. So anyone that is interested in, getting some mushrooms and getting onto these psychedelics, path and starting to learn a little bit more yourself, you can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook as well, and I'll help you to get some mushrooms, because mushrooms are they're amazing medicine. They actually, studies have shown that if you give a group of people mushrooms that are depressed, and you give another group of people the SRTs and all of those antidepressants, the group that takes the mushrooms has a better response in terms of improving the depression. And it looks like the depression reduces substantially, and it lasts for about 4 months. So then you can take another dose again. And what it also does is that it produces new neurons in the brain and creates new neural pathways. And as Joe Dispenza says, neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're creating new neural paths, it means then that you're increasing your consciousness, because you're learning all about yourself, because the psychedelics show you who you are and what you are. And they give you, they show you what to do, but it's just that it's up to you to go in your world and to do these things. So
they kind of work as like a reminder in that way. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying? Because you were saying that they would go ahead and take it again within 4 months. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
another reminder. Like, this is what's really going on. This is who you really are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And carry on that way.
Yeah, they found that it was the only medicine that helps with PTSD. It helps with depression. It helps. So it's not the only medicine, but mushrooms are very good for that. And it also helps with substance abuse, because the thing about psychedelics is that there's no addiction issues, because when you take it, you're like, okay, you have so much integration to do and to think about and to get downloads that you just be like, damn, this is so much to process. And then after a while, again, maybe 3-4 months, you say, okay, you know what? Let's see some more. So it's always a constant refinement of yourself, constant refinement, and it never stops. And the reason why they don't like us to have these medicines is because we would realize that we're being enslaved. And a slave that knows that he's enslaved will break away from his enslavement through one form or the other. But a slave who is happy and comfortable will be a perpetual slave forever. So anyone interested in getting in shape or some mushrooms, hit me up at Adriano_246 or Todd Cave on Facebook, and let's see if I can help you,
And I will put all of those links down in the bio for anybody that just wants kind of like a hyperlink that'll automatically bring you there. Highly suggest you come and follow this man. Like, we want you back on this show as often as humanly possible.
Anytime you want. You know what I mean? You got me wanting to do push-ups already. So
For real, dude.
you're inspiring me.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, those links will be down in the show notes. Before we let you go, we do something every episode, at the end of every episode, and that is a tarot poll, a tarot reading. Don't know if you really mess around with tarot. We don't traditionally do it the same way. We kind of use it as a, since we're kind of talking about the Matrix here, we use it as an oracle reading. And in that way, there are 78 cards in a traditional tarot deck, and we usually go to random.org to pull up. It'll automatically generate a random number from 1 to 78. But whenever we have a guest, we maybe you can pick or guess a number, whatever number comes to your mind, any number from 1 to 78.
36.
36. All right. Hold on one sec. All right. So you got a number, or you got a card here, and it is the 6 of Swords. So I just want to get into reading it right off the bat, what the actual Six of Swords actually means, the key meanings of it are moving forward and embarking on a healing journey, which is exactly what you're talking about. And we always see that they always correlate with every show that we do. And that's typically why we like to do the tarot reading at the end of the show, because we almost feel like it embodies the essence of the show. So that being said, I will get into the actual definition. I have this book right here. It gets into a little bit of exactly what it means. It says, moving forward means finding peace in the present while maintaining hope for the future. Trust that the worst is behind you. After conquering a string of conflicts and challenges, you are ready to expand into the serene journey presented by the 6 of Swords card. On it, we see 3 figures with their backs to the viewer taking a boat ride from choppy waters toward more calm waters, heading toward the peaceful shore. The man steering the boat represents masculine, action-oriented energy, while the seated figure is assumed to be female, sitting passively under a hooded cloak. She represents feminine, intuitive energy, while the child sitting nearby may represent the inner child. The 6 swords standing in front of them inside the boat represent the forward movement of thoughts being safely carried over the water, symbolic of emotions. And the spiritual little paragraph that they have for it, it says, you've reached a new level on your spiritual/healing journey, and you are now moving into a period of peace after much struggle. An upcoming move or some travel plans will do wonders for your flagging spirit. There it is.
Wow. Wow.
All right.
Right?
That resonates with me a lot, actually.
There it is, dude. Hey, you picked the number.
It always seems to.
And it's funny that I was talking about the Trinity. I was talking about God, Christ, and the Spirit being feminine. And they have 3 people they're sitting. It was in a boat, right? You said?
Yep. Yeah, look, this is something that we've come to understand on this show. It literally happens, I shit you not, probably 90% of the time that we get a card that correlates with the episode. There was actually an episode that we did, and this was the most mind-blowing card pull that we've ever had. It was we were talking about this thing called the Anastasia method, which essentially it's like a practice that was practiced over in, what was it, Russia, I think, Sean?
I think so, yeah.
And basically, there was this woman that was hanging out in the woods. Maybe she ran away from her family or something like that. She ended up staying in the forest for 20, 30, 40 years, very long time. And she became very familiar with the forest and all of the healing properties that it presents for us humans, right? And what she found is that anytime you take a seed from any kind of tree, any kind of plant, any kind of vegetable, whatever, anytime you take a seed and you put it in your mouth and you let your saliva soak that seed, then you spit it out into your hand, you hold it up to the stars, right? And almost let the stars shine down all of their wisdom or all their light or whatever. Charge it up, basically. And then you stand on top of the ground wherever it is you want to plant it.
Something like that.
A couple of minutes, right? And then you plant it in that dirt, and essentially what happens is that whenever that seed grows up into whatever kind of fruit or vegetable, whatever it is, it'll automatically have everything within it. Let's say you planted an apple seed and an apple tree grew. Every apple that you would eat would then nourish all of the parts of your body that are specific to you that need nourished. So, like, for example, if you're somebody who is lacking iron or whatever, then now, well, this apple itself is specifically designed for you because it has basically like coincided with your DNA to understand basically for you to eat it. So anyway, we did a whole episode on that. And I shit you not, my good sir, we ended up pulling this card. We pulled a card and it was the Fool. Well, interestingly enough, I was in Arizona with Sean. He didn't have the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck. He had this Five Below deck, like a little tarot deck that you get from Five Below. And a little cheap little deck, but it was cool because it had like different images on it rather than the traditional like Fool card in the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck. And on this card, it was the Fool. However, it was a hand that was held out with something in the hand with a plant around it. And the hand was underneath all of these stars that were shining upon it. We looked throughout that entire deck. It was
the only one.
It was the only card with any plant and any stars in any hand. Now, you can call that a coincidence all day. But
I don't believe in coincidences like that. I really do believe in divine. Like, I tell you something, right? Sorry to cut you, but I do a meditation on a morning, and it is by Joe Dispenza, and he talks about. I actually did it this morning as well, and he said that when you ask for signs from the divine, and when you see it and hear it, you will know it. And when you just read that card, that literally spoke like levels to me where it pretty much nailed it all right. And I'm kind of like, but that was the sign and the symbol that I was looking for, because it meant so much to me, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
it's been a very, very hard road, because you can, like I said, speaking like the way I speak, you don't win any popularity contests, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, hey, dude, sometimes you get a sign like that, and as the almighty Jesus once said, thou art shooketh. Okay? Sometimes that just happens.
You said that, huh?
I believe so. I could be paraphrasing. I'm not sure, but
I like it.
Yeah. Well, look, Todd, this was an absolute pleasure getting to know you, all the knowledge that you've come across in your life. I'm thankful that there's people out there like you who decide to not just accept any official narrative, for you to do your own research, which nowadays you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to just, that's a dangerous thing to do. Don't do that. Because you might actually wake up from the nightmare. So,
they don't want that.
Right. So one more time, Todd, for all of our listeners, we call them the One. Could you tell them your information, and it will be down in the show notes again?
Sure. So anyone that liked this podcast and has any questions and or interested in getting in shape, because summer's soon going to be here, or again, if you want to get some mushrooms, because I work with a great company, you can search for me on Instagram at Adriano_246. or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. And send me a message, shoot me a follow, and let's see if I can help you, man, in either way. Because what my goal is to try to help as many people as possible, because some really challenging times are coming, and we are going to need each other. We are going to need to be strong, both mentally, physically, and spiritually, to be able to push back against what they're trying to do to us. We need brave, strong men and women to stand up for what is right and what they believe in, and to say no. And this is my goal, to try to help as many people as I can, because I can't change the world, but I can change myself. And in changing myself, I will attract the people that want to change as well, because they will see me as a person that is trying to do my best. And we all like the underdog. So if you like the underdog, here's one. I'm the underdog here, and I'm fighting lions and slaying dragons out here in the world. And I need a big army of people that want to fight lions and slay dragons, because we need each other. We have to be the one. We are the one, and that's the message that I try to put out there, that we all are one. We are one mind, one body, one spirit, one consciousness, and it's through our belief in ourselves we will win. Because a lot of people think that it's all doom and gloom and we're over, but I say no. We're going to do it, and we will do it, and we have done it. It is already done, but we just have not realized it yet.
I like that, dude. That was beautiful, man. And I want to let you know, man, like, and I know we said it already, like, I loved everything you brought to the table today. And I also want to say, like, once again, anytime you want to come back and just, you know what I mean, tell everybody what you found out, any new information, man. Oh, we would love that anytime.
Absolutely.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, man. I would love to come back.
Oh yeah, dude.
Awesome, man. Well, look, I almost want to give you a round of applause because you are a wizard and a scholar, sir. And if there is anything that Todd has taught any of the one out there, including us, Sean, it is that you don't know what you don't know. So don't just get weird.
Stay weird.